Is this the one and only Jim Florentine?
Yes, it is.
It is. Jim, welcome to Totally Driven Radio.
What's going on, man? Am I allowed to curse or no?
You can curse, of course. You're Jim friggin' Florentine.
No, I didn't know. So I don't know if it's on regular radio. Sometimes you have a feed that's on there, but then it's internet and all that, so I always check.
Yeah, no, you're safe. Curse away. Say what you got to say.
If I have to, sometimes it just slips.
Yeah. Well, it's better if it slips and it's natural than forced.
Yeah, exactly.
So I got a ton of stuff to talk to you about because you're like the busy bee. I mean, you're covering all worlds of the spectrum anymore. You're between comedy, heavy metal, hard rock music, podcasting, Sirius XM radio. I mean, you're all over the friggin' place.
Yeah, I know, man. It's tough. And then I got a 3-year-old too, who takes up, most of my day.
How do you do it all?
I put on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and he sits by the TV for 2 hours, and I get shit done. No, I don't know. You just pick your spots. It's just, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot because I do a show on Ozzy's Boneyard on satellite, and I pick the playlist each week too. So I got to go through my iPod basically and just come up with a playlist, and it takes a little while because you want that thing to flow. Depends what guest I have. Sometimes I have someone co-hosting, so I want to play songs that are, similar to their band and all that stuff. So, it takes time.
And something like that, like, I know myself being, like, the hard rock heavy metal fan. I remember being, like, the teenager sitting in my basement spinning records and, like, I want to be a DJ. It's probably so easy. But when you really think about it, especially where you have the it's now, 25 years later, and there's such a vast collection of music to choose from. I mean, it's got to be super hard each week.
Yeah, well, because, in a 2-hour show, you pick about 23, 24 songs. So, you really got to, and then breaks in between and introducing them and all that. So, you want to kind of flow. I'm not going to play Metallica and then play Poison. No, if I'm going to go Metallica, then I'm going to go with some, maybe Anthrax or a Slayer after that, and then kind of wind down maybe a Pantera after that, kind of like a little set there.
Right.
Where it's not too, I don't really play like too much of the hair bands anyway. I do more of the harder stuff.
And that was one of my questions too. Like, growing up, which were you more of a fan of? Were you more of a true metalhead, or were you more of a hard rock hair band type guy, or?
No, I was more of a true metalhead, but I did get into the hair band stuff for a little bit because I needed to get laid, and all the chicks were into it, so I needed to, have the Poison record and the LA Guns and the Warrants and stuff like that. I had to know at least that shit and have it in my CD collection. So if I brought a girl back to my, house, I could throw on Warrant, Cherry Pie, and get laid.
It was funny. We had Tracy Guns on here a couple months ago, and I asked him about Steve Riley because I had met Steve Riley, and I broke Steve Riley's balls unmercifully about Tracy. And Tracy just summed it up and said, I would love to take a shit on him and light him on fire at the same time. I was just like, wow. Yeah, that's just pure love there.
Yeah, I mean, there's 5 bands out there that are 2 different bands. There's 2 LA Guns, 2 Great Whites, 2 Queensryches now. I think there's one more too. So I think there's like 4 bands out there.
Like, what's your feelings on that? I mean, because didn't you guys this past season, like, I know you guys have interviewed Jeff Tate, and didn't you have Scott Rockenfeller on as well? Yeah, and
they just basically come in, and tell their sides, and we're like, all right, whatever, good luck. I did see Jeff Tate's Queensryche though, and they were unbelievable. Jeff's got a great band, Rudy Sarzo and Rudy's brother Robert and Brian Tichy on drums, and the band was amazing, and Tate never sounded better. It was a great show. I haven't seen the other Queensryche yet, but...
did you know, like, did you ever read Rudy Sarzo's book?
Yeah, it's an amazing book.
Like, the thing I never knew, I mean, being a huge Randy Rhoads fan, is that he was like trying to get his brother Robert to take Randy's place after the plane accident. Yeah,
Robert was definitely kicked. He was in that band Hurricane, and he was kicking around L.A. and Rudy suggested. I don't know if he would have been a good. I don't know how good he is on guitar, Robert. I mean, he played great with Queensrÿche and stuff, but I don't know. They probably wanted somebody a little flashier. They went with that Bernie Torme guy for like 9 days and got rid of him, and then got Brad Gillis. And Brad Gillis was great.
Sure.
And then they wound up taking Jakey Lee.
So growing up, did you want to be a rock star, rocker, or a comedian? Where was your...
I wanted to, rock, because all my friends were, I was a big metalhead growing up. My older brothers got me into it when I was like 10, and just driving around in a car and cranking music and bringing me to concerts. When I was about 12, 13, I started going to shows. And all my friends were in bands that I hung out with, but I just didn't have the talent for it. I just, I couldn't play an instrument. I couldn't sing. I went for singing lessons one time, and this woman at the end of the session goes, "Look, you don't have it." She's like, "I could take your money for the next couple of years, but you got nothing." I'm glad she was honest with me. She could have said, "No, you're coming along good." She goes, you can keep coming back." All right, well, thanks, So, and then I just, and I wanted to be, I like comedy, but then when I saw like Kinnison and Dice, the way they brought like a rock star, like a mentality to comedy, that's when I really started getting into comedy, and then eventually I went up on stage.
How old were you when you first started doing stand-up?
Probably 25, 24. It took me a while, By the time I was DJing on the radio, I went to I was DJing at my college radio station, and then I got a gig on like a little local station in Jersey, and I was doing that for a while.
Oh, okay.
And then I was DJing like in rock clubs and all that stuff, and then I saw Kinnison and Dice, and I was just like, man, that's what I really want to do, because I wasn't really, I had to play like formats, whatever, some shitty Foreigner and Journey and that crap, like I was like, I want to play Motorhead, I don't want to play this shit. So I just said, and then I saw those guys perform. I go, I'm going to go up on stage. I can say whatever I want.
So from doing stand-up, then how did you get into doing like the whole prank call thing?
That was just a thing where I was just, I was home during the day. I had nothing going on, so I was just sit by the phone. Like if the phone rang, I would try to keep a telemarketer on the phone for like an hour. Because I had nothing going on in my life, my career, anything. I'd get up at like 11 o'clock as a comic. I'd do shows till like 2 in the morning, or get home like 2, get up at 11. And my next show wasn't until like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock that night. So if the phone rang, I'm like, I'm going to see how long I can keep this person on. You know what I mean? And I was living with Jim Norton at the time, comedian Jim Norton, and Jim was listening to stuff, and he's like, man, you're onto something. This is funny stuff. And then my buddy Don Jameson's like, put me on three-way. I want to hear what goes on. Because I wasn't really a big prank call guy either. I mean, I did it as a kid just because I was bored and I was always grounded, and I was, so I would just pick up the phone and prank people. But I was never really into the Jerky Boys. It wasn't that I didn't like them. I just wasn't into prank calls. And when Jameson heard my stuff, he's like, dude, you're onto something, man. This shit is gold. I'm like, really? I think it's funny. I don't think anyone else would. He goes, no, it's going to be really good.
Now, how long have you and Don known each other?
I've known Don since like the mid-'90s. Don booked me on my first comedy show.
Oh, wow.
Don used to be a pretty big executive, a producer at MTV back in the day. And,
no kidding.
Yeah. So I was trying to make my way into New York, like in the clubs in New York City, and I was friends with this one comedian, Rich Franchese, who was around, and he did a bunch of TV shows. And he took me to this Christmas party at a comedy club, and he saw Jameson there. And Jameson wasn't even doing stand-up or anything. And he goes, hey, Don, I want to introduce you to someone. He goes, this guy, he's a comic. He goes, he's from Jersey. He likes heavy metal, and he loves and he likes hanging out in strip clubs. And Jameson's like, really? He goes, wow, it sounds like we got a lot in common. And we talked for a little while, and he goes, hey, I'm looking for new comedians for the show. And then he booked me on there, and that's when things started rolling in my career.
No. There's a huge connection now with the whole comedy metal scene with guys like yourself and Don and Jim Norton and Jim Brewer. What do you think? And you guys all like proudly profess like the love of music and metal, and it's become part of your acts and all. Do you think there's like a big I just picture in my mind like a huge tour being put together of this, like where the music and the comedy really becomes one, instead of just like having you guys host a show or MC a show, but in between, like where the crowd has to sit there and wait for the band change for that half hour in between, have one of you guys do your set and have some killer bands out there, like I hear your show on Sirius and you're playing all these new bands and mix some old bands in there. I mean, it could be like a cool festival type thing.
I would love to do that. Dave Chappelle's touring again.
Okay.
And they're kind of doing that. They're doing, well, I mean, it's like that, I guess it's Funny or Die is presenting the whole tour, but they're playing like, big places like outdoor theaters where 17,000 people are drawing. It's Chappelle and it's a Flight of the Conchords and Jeff Ross and a bunch of comics and stuff, and it's a big comedy festival they're doing.
Wow.
And they're selling a ton of tickets. So, I mean, Chappelle's been around in a while. I think people are curious, and he's a great comic. But, that's doing real well. I would love to do something like that. I mean, Metallica had, for their festival, they booked me, Jim Brewer, and Jameson for it. We did it last year, and it was amazing. They had a whole comedy stage.
Oh, so they did the separate stage. That was the Orient Festival over in Jersey they did?
Yeah, yep.
So they had you guys on a separate stage?
Yeah, it was one of the side stages near our main one. The smaller bands and stuff will go on too, but yeah, we did it, and then I just did this festival in Columbus, Ohio called Rock on the Range.
Okay.
It's a big 3-day festival every year. They got huge bands, and this is the first year they had a comedy tent, so I did it with a bunch of other guys like Ari Shaffir and Big J Okerson. It was another metal comic who was toured with Korn, and they had a few other guys, and there was just a regular comedy tent for that, and they're going to do that every year. So comedy's really starting to work in the rock world, which is weird. I never thought it would.
What kind of feeling do you get? I mean, like when a band like Metallica calls you to come and perform on their festival.
It was unbelievable. It was amazing. We joke with Lars because Lars was on that metal show, and he said they're doing a festival, and he's like, we might even have some comedians, and we know they're in with Jim Brewer. Jim Brewer's tight with James Hetfield and Lars, and me and Jameson just kind of joked on the air, go, hey, we're comics, put us on, and the next thing you know, we got a call like you guys are on. We're like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's...
Made sure the first thing I did when I got to that festival is I went right to the merch table and I found a shirt that had every act on the shirt, and I bought 3 of them because my name was on the same shirt as Metallica on that bill.
Oh, that's awesome.
I had to. I fucking just put them right in my car. And it was funny, when I was walking home one night, it was in Atlantic City, so I'm walking back to the casino, and there was these bootleg guys selling shirts outside. And they had these bootleg shirts, and I said, let me look at the back of that. And I looked, and they didn't have everybody's name on it, like all the bands. They had 3/4 of them, and I was yelling at the guy, where's Jim Florentine's name? He's like, who? I never heard of him. I go, he's on the show. He's like, I don't know who that is. I'm like, how come he's not on this shirt?
Oh, man.
All right, so you were doing the crank calls and the prank call CDs, and you released a bunch of those CDs.
Yeah.
And you claimed that basically going on the Howard Stern show really put you over the top.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, he just started playing the calls. He took a liking to him for some reason. Jameson actually knew the producer, Gary Delabate, from years back, and he went in with my CD that I made up just, to sell my gigs, and he goes, hey, my friend's got this CD. It's really funny. He's like, all right, if it's funny, we'll play it on the air. And the next day he's playing it. He's like, who the fuck is this guy? Holy shit. And a couple months later, they had me sit in, and they took a liking to me, so I was sitting in all the time and just, making a lot of appearances on the show and him just playing the CDs. And then I got the gig on Crank Anchors because Kimmel and Carolla heard my stuff on Stern, and those are the guys behind Crank Anchors. And who's that guy to make those calls? We want him on our show.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Howard is the true king of all media. You can't deny that. I mean, he just heard everywhere, and everybody's such a huge fan.
It was the first. I had my CD in stores. I signed some shitty deal with some little label, and I remember it was in Tower Records and stuff. My CD, my first telemarketer CD, and I remember on Amazon. I'll never forget that it was ranked 282,437. Basically, nobody was buying the CD.
Right.
I went on Stern the next morning, the first day and Saturday, and he played it 3 or 4 times during the morning. My CD went to number 2 on Amazon. And it would have went to number one, but my website crashed because it didn't have enough bandwidth because everyone was going to my website to listen, and it crashed. And I was right behind the friggin' the Backstreet Boys. I was at number two, and I couldn't get back, but my website crashed. So I went to number two just from the Stern Show within like a day.
That's amazing.
I know. Like, imagine everybody looking at those charts and who, U2, Backstreet Boys, Jim Florentine. Like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, where did this come from?
I know.
Behind the Backdoor Boys.
I know, the fucking Backdoor Boys, exactly.
Now, what was it like when you got to sit in the Jackie chair?
It was awesome. I mean, I was a huge Stern fan growing up, listening to, I worked every shitty job in the world, landscaping, fixing up old houses, and I always, or just, being in a van and going to work, some shitty job, and always had Stern on. It always got me through the day. So, I mean, just to go in there and sit in, I remember the first day, I'm just like, I was pacing in the green room before I went in. I'm like, all right, man, this is my one shot. If I blow this, I'm fucked. I'm like, I know this show. I know like the back of my hand, so just fit in. You've been talking back to the radio for years knowing what you would say, So,
that's funny.
And it wound up working out great.
Now, do you think if things, say if you won the Jackie chair instead of Artie, do you think it would have been a good fit in the long run, or?
I don't know. No, I probably not. I think Artie was way better for it. I mean, Artie did voices and had crazy showbiz stories and stuff. And Artie was. I don't know if I would have been the right fit for that chair. Look, there's no way I would have turned it down. I didn't even know they were looking for people. They would just say, well, we're just going to have just people come in all the time and, sit in. So to me, it wasn't even a competition. I was happy when they got – that's when I first met Artie, too. I never met Artie before.
Oh, okay.
A bunch of guys were doing it. Fitzsimmons was doing it, Stanhope,
right.
Carolla, Kimmel. So I was just happy to be in the mix, and then all of a sudden they hired Artie. But, I wouldn't have turned it down. I would have taken the gig in a second, but I don't know if I would have been right for it.
Now, do you have to laugh when you think, you were doing, with the prank calls and all that, 15 years ago, whatever it was, and now they have, Sal and Richard, and it's that's all they do, and they make a living off of that.
I know. It's crazy. I know that they hired two people to do that. Their calls are so funny, man.
So then when you were on Crank Yankers, you had a big fan in Eminem. Now, what was it like getting hooked up with him?
That was crazy. I mean, I'm not a rap guy. I don't like hip-hop, but I always liked Eminem for some reason because, he doesn't write the same shit like everybody else does, I got my bitches, I got my hoes, I'm in the club, all that shit. You know what I mean? He writes from his heart and stuff. I've always liked his lyrics and stuff. So, yeah, we found out after season one that Eminem was a big fan through the grapevine. We're like, Eminem, really? And then there was the MTV Movie Awards he was on, and he won an award for 8 Mile, I guess it was. And he just went up there and he did a special ed impression the whole time when he accepted the award. And nobody knew what it was because the show was only on for 6 episodes on Comedy Central, and people weren't really catching on to it. So the next day, all of the news, Entertainment Tonight, well, I don't know what Eminem was doing up there. Was that a personal joke to his friends at home in Detroit? Nobody knew what the hell it was.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, and then a couple days later, we got a call hey, Eminem wants to be on Crank Yankers because his daughter was a big fan of the show. He adopted another daughter, so there was two of them. He goes, they would watch that and bond every week. So Eminem said, they're like, Dad, I want you to be on that show. And he always did prank calls anyway. So we got a call that Eminem wanted me, the guy does special ed, in his home studio in Detroit in a couple days to be on the show. So, next thing you know, I'm in Detroit in his freaking studio making calls.
Well, that must have been a crazy experience.
It was because I remember being in there and he didn't get there yet, and then all of a sudden I'm in the studio and I see him come through. You see the glass where the big soundboard is, and I see him stand there, and I'm like, all right, man, he's just a person. All right, don't fucking just relax, because you don't want to piss Eminem off because he'll write a whole album about you.
Yeah, right.
And he walks in. I never forget. He walks in and he just stares at me. He's like, I can't believe I'm in the room with special ed. That's what he says to break the ice. I go, well, likewise. Then we just started talking for like a half hour about call. He knew like every one of my prank calls. He had every one of my CDs, all the Crank Anchor stuff. He knew it by heart. He was asking me, how did this, when this guy did this, what did you say? And all. I was like, holy shit, this is a psycho fan.
That just shows right there. Yeah, like, okay, he is a normal guy. He is just like everybody else.
Oh, he totally was. And you know what I loved about him? The only thing that he said from Comedy Central that he demanded, he just wanted Taco Bell for lunch. That was it. He said, just get him Taco Bell for lunch.
Sounds like a fair deal.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what we did. But no, he was totally cool. And you know what? He used to. I hung out with him a few times after that, and he had my home number because I was friends with his manager, Paul Rosenberg. Eminem used to prank call me all the time as Special Ed. And I knew it was him because I knew how he did it. He did it really well, the voice, but I just knew how he. But I wouldn't say it was. I wouldn't say who is the. I would just go, who is this? I knew it was him, but I didn't want to say, look, dude, I know it's you because I want him to keep calling me. So he called me for like a year. He would call, like once a week he'd call and he'd just go, hey, I like you, lady. I'm like, who is this? And I mean,
that could be your next
in my face,
CD.
I knew it was him.
Is him crank calling you? That could be your next CD.
It could be.
So how did you and then you and Don? So you guys knew each other for years. How did you guys hook up with Eddie to do that metal show?
Well, so Don, after he books me on the TV show on MTV, we start hanging out a little bit, and he goes, hey, man, I'm thinking about doing comedy. He goes, I want to come to one of your comedy gigs. And I was playing the worst gigs in the world. I mean, friggin' bars, corner bars in the middle of a neighborhood and shit, strip clubs going on in between the dances and stuff. I mean, I wasn't playing like Improvs or Funny Bones or any good rooms. I was barely working in the city. I was just working at one comedy club in New York, and I was embarrassed to tell him, I'm like, not this gig. I'm playing down in Philly. This club in Philly that I was playing was connected to a strip club, so there was like a little room next door to the strip club where they did comedy. And he's like,
no, I
didn't want him to see me. I want him to think like I was like this established comic that was working all these really good rooms and being in L.A. and all that. And he's like, nah, man, I really just I don't mind taking the ride down to Philly. I just wanted to see what the other comics out there and really get a feel for it and start, getting up on stage eventually. And I was like, all right. Meanwhile, I'm driving down to some shitty club outside of Philly with, some big executive, MTV executive in my car. I'm like, holy shit. But then we just became friends, and what happened was he started doing comedy from there, and I would take him on gigs. He'd open for me, and we'd listen to Eddie's radio show on the way back, like on a Friday night, and we're like, man, this guy knows the same fucking music we know. How did we not know this guy? Like, he was right in the same wheelhouse as us. And then we met him at a concert one time. We told him we're comics, and we listened to the show. He goes, you should come on my radio show. And he goes, I love having comics sit in. So then we started sitting in on his radio show on Friday nights in New York when we had time off. And Eddie was already working at VH1. At the time, he was doing like an interview show. He goes, I'm going to pitch a show with the three of us on it, a talk show. I'm like, all right, do it. And next thing you know, they gave us money to do one pilot, and they liked the show.
Now, by chance, do you remember what that club in Philly was?
Cheerleaders.
Okay, because we're from Philly. We're based out of Philly.
All right, do you know what Cheerleaders used to be?
Yes, it's still there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a little room right across from it. The comedian Bob Levy actually got thrown out. There was two shows on a Saturday night, and of course, as soon as we were done with the show, we'd go right into the strip club and hang out. Right. What else are we going to do, So,
sure.
Yeah, causing a scene, and Bob pulled out his penis and was waving it around and showing girls, and one of them told the manager, and the manager sent us home, and we couldn't do the second show. Yeah, so I remember that place well.
Leave it to Bob.
Yeah, he was swinging around. He's like, look, girls, you ever see a helicopter? And he was swinging his dick around like a helicopter.
Who's been some of your favorite guests on that metal show?
Every season is different. Rob Halford, I think he came on like the second season. That was an amazing one. The late, great Ronnie James Dio. Then everybody from Sabbath has been on. Geezer. Well, Ozzy hasn't been on, but Geezer, Bill Ward, Tony Iommi. Brian Johnson from AC/DC was great. Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine. I'm a huge Rage fan. So it all depends. Every year, so another guy comes on, and I'm like, oh, this is fucking amazing that he's sitting right here. Steve Harris from Maiden.
Now, how about this? I mean, this past season, the hype, it seemed like, was just unreal. Because I think, I mean, for myself, the biggest reason probably had to be two reasons. First was Jakey Lee. Like, how did you dig up Jakey Lee? Where did you find him at?
Yeah, Eddie knew some guy in Vegas that was helping Jake get his act together and put an album out. And he was in contact with him, and Jake said, "Yeah, when I get my shit together, I'll come on." And this was for a couple of years we're hoping to get him on, and then eventually it was the perfect timing that he just says, "All right, I'm ready. I want to get it back out there," and I'm pretty much clean again because I think he had a drug problem for a while. He was kind of MIA for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that's all, I kept seeing and hearing was like, yeah, Jake's living in Vegas, and then he's a meth head, and he's got a lot of issues, and people were seeing him, like, hawking guitars in pawn shops and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it was.
And the other guy...
I didn't want to ask him, it just seemed like he was like, hey, man, I'm good to go. I'm ready to get back out there, and so... he's a really nice guy, too.
That's something too. Let me see the other guest first in this past season. It had to be Jason Newsted.
Jason was unbelievable. The guy's amazing. I mean, I love the new stuff he's put out. He's just a really smart guy. And I went on this. I was on Gigantour, the Megadeth tour this past summer.
Mm-hmm.
For 3 weeks, open and hosted and emceeing the shows, and I saw Newsted every day and just kicked ass. And they were going on early. They were going on like 5:30 too, and they just every day just killing it.
Yeah, I mean, I keep saying to people, if anybody is going to bring the spirit of metal back, it's going to be Jason Newsted. I mean, I love his new stuff.
Yeah, it's great. He's a great guy. It's a perfect time for him to come back. He's been away long enough. He's healed, from all his injuries and stuff he had.
Now, when you guys are filming the show, do you guys, I mean, how long of actual interviews do you get with these guys? I mean, do you guys get to, do long interviews and then you just cut it down for TV, or is there a lot of...
we pretty much shoot it if you would go like Letterman, we shoot it for an hour.
Okay.
Show. And, we get a time, we pretty much shoot it to time. Sometimes they'll go a little over if someone's babbling or something like that, but they pretty much give us the cue. Like after, our first segment interview, it's like 8 minutes, and there's a clock that we can see. And, if we go past it, when it goes to 8 minutes, the producer, you see him waving his arms like, all right, fucking enough, go to commercial. So we pretty much
gotcha.
There's not much on the editing floor.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was a lot of stuff on, as you said, on the editing floor where maybe there'd be DVDs released of footage that never was seen, or...
I mean, there's some stuff, definitely, but, we tape 2 shows in a day, so we got to knock them out. We got to tape one, and we got about a 45-minute break in between the next one to get ready and do another show, so we don't have that much time to really, spend a lot of time with the artists and go over, with costs and crew and all that stuff, because at a certain point you got to pay time and a half with the crew and all that, so we got to pretty much be on time.
Right. Now, with the Gigantour, you said you were hosting, or were you doing stand-up, or? Yeah,
I was doing stand-up. It was 5 bands on the tour, so I would do a minute or 2 of stand-up between each band, and then I would introduce the band.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, I kept it real brief in between. I didn't want to be babbling. I know I was a guy standing in the audience like, all right, shut the fuck up, bring the band on.
Now, you had to do that for Slayer.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, did people want to kill you?
Yeah. It was a rough one. I pulled it off, but it was tough. They were just, because I had to do 3 5-minute sets in between each band. It was Slayer, Megadeth, and Anthrax. If I would have just done 15 minutes before Anthrax, it would have been amazing. When I went on 5 minutes right before Anthrax went on Anthrax went on at 7, and so at 6:55 I'd go on. There's probably only 2,000 people in the venue. It was great. It was like doing a comedy club. They were great. But then, an hour later when Megadeth's coming on, now the venue's got, 9,000, and they're all friggin' amped up and hammered, and you pull that one off. But then by the time Slayer goes on, they want nothing to do with you. They're like, shut the fuck up, dude. Especially the Slayer fans. They're friggin' animals.
Oh, yeah. I remember I saw Slayer open for Wasp years ago.
Wow.
I saw Metallica open for Wasp even before that.
Damn. That'd be in the 80s? Like 84, 85?
84, yeah. 84 at the Tower Theater outside of Philly.
Oh, yeah. I saw Accept there at the Tower Theater.
Yep.
Like around 86, 87, 88, 89, somewhere around there.
Now and then the three of you guys are always praise this band, and it's a band that I can't get into, and I don't understand it. I don't understand what the love is for. UFO.
I don't praise them as much. They have a live album called what the fuck is it? Strangers in the Night, which is a great album. But other than that, I like that. I like that. That's a band where a greatest hits live album is good. But I'm not a huge fan. I mean, Michael Schenker came from there, and they got some history. But that live album is really good. But other than that, they're okay.
Yeah, I just don't understand.
That's more of Eddie, not me and Don.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll throw the heat on Eddie then.
No. Look, I'll take the bullet on other bands like Riot and Raven and shit and Rose Tattoo is one I always rave about.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's a funny one too. I just saw last night. Raven just got booked for a small club down in Wilmington, Delaware.
Yeah. I know, because they're playing in Jersey and they're playing in New York. I'm going to go see them. Even Raven, Raven had like three good albums. They were almost like an Anvil. Anvil had like 2 or 3 good albums. That's it.
Right.
But Rose Tattoo only put like 5 albums out. Or 4. The first like 4 are really good.
It's funny. I kind of picture you like being when you were a teenager. Now, probably the same way as me and my friends were. A bunch of guys, long hair, denim jackets with pins and patches of our favorite bands all over them, and you would just sit around on the weekends, drinking beer or smoking pot and just listening to music on your boombox and arguing who was the better band, who was the better guitar player, who's the better singer, and it was the same thing every weekend, but the arguments never stopped.
Yeah, you know what? All of that, except for the argument, we didn't really argue that much because it was just like we were all, into Priest, Motorhead, Sabbath, Dio, Maiden, stuff like that. So we just, we pretty much, when Sabbath split and it was Dio, the Dio version of Sabbath, and there was the Ozzy solo, we were all more into the Ozzy solo. We liked the Dio Sabbath too, but we definitely liked the Ozzy solo better. We loved Motorhead, we loved Priest, loved Maiden, so there wasn't too much of that going on. We weren't that much of metal nerds at that point.
Yeah, it's funny
because you go back, because you're a kid. Anything that comes out, you like pretty much. Yeah. You know what I mean? In that era, from 1979 to 84, every album that came out was fucking great, except for Judas Priest's Point of Entry was just okay. But all the Motorhead shit, the Priest, the Sabbath, the Ozzy, the Maiden, all that stuff to me was, when it was coming out, was all masterpieces. But then as you get older and you look back at the stuff, you're like, all right, maybe some of that wasn't that great. But you don't know any better. You're just friggin' drinking a 12-pack and you're friggin' cranking that shit and driving around.
Right. And that's what we were doing back then.
With no chicks.
Yeah, exactly.
See, that's why I had to get into the Poisons and that stuff, because I'm like, I got to get laid. Chicks weren't into Judas Priest and Maiden back then, so I'm like, all right, I got to fucking know some of this Poison stuff.
See, I was always into the hair band stuff and all, and I wanted to be the rock star and started playing guitar, but I was the guy that always worried about trying to make their hair too high or trying to look cool. But the problem was, I was a fat guy. I was always a fat guy, still a fat guy. So It just didn't work. And then I hung out with like a bunch of other fat guys who all had the same style, and we were like, you know what? We're going to strike back. We're going to make the fat bastards in spandex, but it just never happened.
Oh, never did. That's funny. Yeah, no, I basically took Coverdale's look. Coverdale or Bon Jovi, whatever hairstyle I had going on. I'm like, all right, this works for me.
So at this point in your career, which would you be happier doing? Would you be happier still doing stand-up or just having like a gig like that metal show?
The stand-up. I love doing stand-up, man. It's my first love. I love getting up there. I took like 3.5 weeks off just recently, and I haven't taken that much time off since I started doing comedy, and I just needed to recharge. It was after the Megadeth tour, the Gigantour. I was just like, all right, because I was away for so long.
Sure.
I just said I'm just going to chill for a while, and just getting back up like last week for the first time was just it felt amazing, and I just loved it. The rush you get from being up there is just awesome.
Yeah, it seems like every comedian we talk to, they all pretty much say the same thing. Like whether they have like a TV show or something else, bottom line, it's their first true love and passion is being up on stage doing stand-up.
Because you're your own boss. You could do whatever. Nobody tells you what to do. You can wear whatever you want. You could say whatever you want. I mean, there's an unbelievable freedom in that. You know, when you would do TV, you're very restricted. You know, you got to play by their rules. I always tell people the only decision I can make on that metal show is what concert T-shirt I'm going to wear, basically. You know, other than that, it's like, all right, we got this guest, we got this guest, we got this guest, interview. I'm like, okay, you know. So I don't really have too much of a say. But I just love getting up on stage and doing whatever the fuck I want to do. Thinking of something during the day and then. You know, talk about it on stage that night is a great feeling, and especially when it works. When it bombs, it's not a good feeling.
Sure. So you guys really don't have too much of a say in the guest, or?
No, I mean we can make recommendations. I've been bitching at him to put Clutch on since season 1. You know, just a producer, and then he has to tell 8 other people above him about why they should have a band like Clutch on. So I have, a teeny say where I can relay a message up to the heads where, hey, maybe we should check this band out.
There was the one show this year, too. It was Tom Kiefer and Rob Zombie, and it just seemed like it was like an awkward mix. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes that happens. Sometimes those guys can only do that day when we're taping, so... and Zombie didn't care. Some of the guests are like, oh, I don't want to be with this guy because, like someone like, Slayer might say, I don't want to be with a guy from Cinderella. Fuck that. Put me on a different show. So, but I guess that just worked out that way. Maybe I think Rob, that was the only day he could do it. So he's like, I don't give a shit who I'm on with. It doesn't matter.
Well, that's cool. Did you ever see, speaking of Tom Kiefer, did you ever see, because I grew up in the same neighborhood as like Tom and Jeff and them guys, and before they got signed, the original band, when the guys from Britney Fox were still in the band, there was a local place in the area. It was called Pat's Chili Dogs, and they did a commercial for local cable access, Pat's Chili Dogs, and it's them guys all glammed to the max, standing in front of the place. Did you ever see that commercial?
No.
That is the best.
Oh, it's a classic. It's on YouTube. Finally, somebody about like 2 years ago finally put it up on YouTube. But if you type in Cinderella Pat's Chili Dogs, you'll see it, and it's Tommy and Eric and Michael Kelly Smith from Britney Fox and the original drummer Tony Destra, who was killed in a car crash. And it's pure gold.
Wow. Now, you know what? I'll give Cinderella credit. They got lumped in with the hair bands, and I guess the first record they had the high hair, but they were more like a blues hard rock band. They had some good stuff. Yeah,
like they went in a total different direction from that first album.
Yeah, they definitely did. I always liked those guys. I never had a problem with Cinderella. It's funny that when Kiefer was on the show, that episode, we showed an old clip of them coming off a tour bus, and Eric, the bass player.
Right.
It was a thing where he had this thing in his pants. I don't know what it was. I thought he put a sock in there because he had this huge bulge.
Right.
And I made him stop it, and I circled it like John Madden does at the football games. I'm like, Tom, what is that in your bass player's pants? And And Tom's like, I don't know, we all got a big laugh out of it, but supposedly I heard from Eddie Trunk that Eric's mother-in-law was watching the show and had a call, left Eric a voicemail, goes, they were talking about you on that metal show. I'm not really going to divulge what they were talking about. You might want to catch it on a rerun.
Oh, that's funny.
So that's how he found out. His mother-in-law saw a big package and me circling it. So just imagine what he's thinking now. Like that big thing is going in my daughter. She pulled the daughter aside. Go, are you okay? Does it hurt? That's beautiful.
All right. So what's everything you got coming up now? I mean, you do your show every Thursday on the Boneyard, Ozzy's Boneyard.
Yeah. Yeah, I just had David Lee Roth co-hosted with me this week.
How was that?
It was unbelievable. He's great, Roth. I mean, look, he talks a lot, but if you can reel him in. He was on Opie and Anthony's show last week, and I was a guest on. We happened to be on the same day, so I just asked him in a commercial break. I said, Dave, I'm on Ozzy's Boneyard. You want to come in and co-host the show? He's like, of course. He goes, I know you're on there. Oh my God! And then we just sat. So I knew that how to reel him in where he doesn't go off. Sometimes he just likes to talk, but I mean, he's great though. He's a great interview, and he's so honest these days about the past with Van Halen and groupies and what went down and all that stuff. Before, he never really talked about it that much.
Do you say to him why is Michael Anthony not in the band?
No, I don't. You know what? I don't even open that door because it's just he's, as far as I'm concerned, he's happy. He's got a gig. You know what I mean? He's back in Van Halen. The Van Halen brothers, look, those guys, the Van Halen brothers, they didn't do anything since that friggin' Gary Sharon record. They didn't record anything. They finally get Dave back. It's I don't want to open that because, I don't know, I'm not that guy to do that. Even with the Sabbath guys, hanging around. I talked to, Ozzy and Geezer and Tony and stuff like that. And it's I'm not going to go, why isn't Bill Ward in the band? It's been talked about so many times where it's I'm not bringing it up.
Right.
It's almost like when Slash is a guest on the show. I'm not going to go, you're going to get back with Axl or what?
Yeah, I mean,
it's the bottom line. It's Eddie's son, and there's no way that kid's going to be out of the band ever unless he quits. And so that's the answer. Dave could have said, look, I think Van Halen grossed $93 million on their last tour. Is Dave going to sit at home and go, you know what, if Michael Anthony's not in the band, I'm not playing? Or am I going to go, are we going to make $93 million and tour for 8 months?
Yeah, he probably said Michael Anthony who?
Yeah, exactly. He's just all right, whatever. This is what Eddie wants. He's he probably compromised. He said, all right, Eddie, you want Wolfgang, then, I'm going to do this or whatever. Who knows? We need to do an album before we go tour again because, they did that tour in 2007. They didn't put any new music out. So maybe that was the agreement. I don't know.
And here's going to be my awkward question. Because as soon as you say Jim Florentine's name, the first thing everybody says, Robin Quivers.
Well, yeah, that's another thing. Look, it was a relationship we were in. And, it didn't work out. We broke up. There was no hard feelings. We weren't, we're not enemies and all that other stuff. It just didn't work out. And, we both moved on and moved, on to other relationships. So that's, that's almost the same thing as, the Michael Anthony and the Axl and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
really nothing to say. I got nothing bad to say about it. We had a great time. We were together. It just didn't work out. We just, two totally different schedules definitely had a big part in it, with her, getting up super early in the morning and me working at nights and working on weekends. That's where I make my money, doing stand-up. So I need to travel, and then, that's when she's off.
Yeah, I mean, again, I had that on my list of questions. I was like,
I don't mind it, but I'm not gonna go. I'm not talking about that, I don't. But basically, but that was also 6 years ago, or something, or 6 years ago. But hey, look, man, it was, it was.
Fun while it lasted.
Yeah, exactly. It just didn't, what are you gonna do?
All right,
she took her to see a Van Halen show at the Nassau Coliseum in 2008 when they played there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she loved it too.
That's funny. So so we have you're on Ozzy's Boneyard, and you're doing a podcast too.
Yeah, I've been doing a podcast for like 2 years now.
Now,
I do it once a week. I pretty much just rant about different shit each week.
Now, how do you do your podcast? Because we always have technical difficulty on ours.
Well, mine is super low tech. I got a Zoom recorder. I sit in my office in my basement and I just talk into it.
So you record yours and put yours up, and yeah, we could probably do that too. But we go through a system so we can be live on the air because I have this thing in my head. It's better to be live.
No, it definitely is better to be live. No, I'm not live at all. So I'll record a podcast. I won't post it for like a month.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't have that big system. But I could do a podcast wherever. I always carry my recorder with me. That's why I had it at Opie and Anthony last week. I said, maybe Dave will do my radio show. And I actually interviewed him a little more, so he'll be part of a podcast, too. So I always have it with me where I could just go, hey, all right, let's pull that right out and just do it right there.
Awesome. And any stand-up dates coming up, or?
Yeah. Where the hell am I going to be? It's Kansas City in September and Montreal. It's all my web dates are on JimFlorentine.com. And I'll be outside of Philly, some casino. Fuck, I can't remember. It's not till like February, though.
Is it the one in Chester?
It's not Parks Casino. It's another one.
Valley Forge? Valley Forge or Chester?
It might be Chester.
Sweet. That's 10 minutes from my house. I'll be there.
Yeah, I think it's not till February. I'm doing that. I'm doing Bethlehem, PA, and the Music Fest room or something like that in Bethlehem the night before. But yeah, so I'll be in Philly eventually. No, I love Philly, man. It's one of my favorite towns.
Let me throw, before we wind down, I'm going to throw one band name out at you, and I'm going to get your opinion on it. Some people rag on them. I think they're great. Halestorm.
Yeah, wait, I know what you're going to say. I think Five Finger Death Punch.
No, you know what? No, I was going to say Halestorm.
I love Halestorm.
I think Lizzie Hale is just her voice is just amazing.
No, she's unbelievable. She's the new friggin', she's the Lita Ford of this modern day, basically. She's great.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Halestorm. I actually interviewed them at that Rock in the Range. They were at that festival and stuff, and that was the first time I met them. No, she's the real deal. She could friggin' sing anything. She's great on stage. She's fucking, they're awesome, Halestorm. Look, they're a little commercial. I don't know this whole thing, why if a band gets played on the radio, all of a sudden people can't like them.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
I don't understand that.
Years.
Sabbath gets played on the radio. Metallica gets played on the radio. Does that mean you can't like them?
Yeah, but, back in the day before Metallica started getting played on the radio, it was, once they got played on the radio, it was like, oh, you sold out. They're posers now. And
yeah, but that's not their decision to get played on the radio. That's the radio programmers deciding to put them on. They can't write they didn't write a song going, all right, hopefully they weren't on the radio till, One was the first song that actually got played on the radio off of Justice for All.
Actually, here in Philly, Fade to Black got heavy airplay.
But all the radio stations started playing it after playing Master of Puppets stuff when the Black album came out. Then it was acceptable to play Metallica, so then they went and started playing the old shit.
Right.
But no, I have no, look, if a band gets lucky enough to get played on the radio, you're supposed to hate them? Why? I don't get that.
I don't either.
Sense. I don't care that my 14-year-old nephew likes a band. So that means I can't like him because he likes them? That's stupid.
I agree.
My 14-year-old nephew loves Avenged Sevenfold, Five Finger Death Punch, and Black Sabbath. So now am I supposed to not like Black Sabbath anymore? I've liked them since I was 12 because he wears a Black Sabbath T-shirt every day and knows every word to every song.
Although it is kind of weird when you walk into like a Target or a Walmart and they're selling like a Black Sabbath T-shirt.
I know, and AC/DC and all that shit. I know. They were like the devil. You couldn't even bring that shit in your house when you were a kid.
Right. It just cracks me up.
I like Halestorm a lot. I love them. I think they're great. And I love Five Finger Death Punch, too. I think they're great.
Yeah, I like some of their stuff. I'm not a big fan, though.
Look, Five Finger Death Punch, if we were kids at 16, 17 years old with all that anger because we weren't getting laid, and that's mostly where it came from, because chicks would ignore us, Five Finger Death Punch would have been our favorite band by far, because it's just a lot of, like, rage. It's just a lot of, like, fuck you, you know what I mean? And as a teenager, you can relate to that. As you get older, you're like, all right, so what are you so angry about? But you got all that angst in you, and that's perfect music for them. And I still have that rage. Have you heard any of my podcasts?
The podcast I have not heard. I've heard your show on Sirius XM. That I've heard. As a matter of fact.
Okay, but yeah. So anyway, but Five Finger Death Punch. If we were both 16 right now or 17, we'd love them. They'd be our favorite band. Probably.
But you played some band couple weeks ago in your show. There was two bands. One was Tank, and I was like, this shit is good. And there was another band you played too, and another new band. I was like, wow, a lot of good new stuff. Yeah, but
Tank is good. I know no one really knew about Tank. People are like, oh fuck, I never even heard of this band. I know they put like 3 good records out. Tank. Tigers of Pantang maybe too.
No, it wasn't them. It was a newer band.
Oh, it was a newer band.
Yeah.
Shit. Scorpion Child? There's also a band called Monster Truck.
I think that was it.
Yeah, there's a band. They're from Canada. There's a lot of good bands coming out, man. This band Scorpion Child sounds like Zeppelin from the 70s. They just put their first album out like a month ago. They're from Austin, Texas. They're really good. Monster Truck's a band from Canada. They're good. Who else? Shit, I'm trying to remember. Are you a Rage Against the Machine fan at all?
Yes.
Okay, a band from Baltimore called Rebel Inc. You have to check them out. If Rage put another record out, this would be the record.
Okay, let me ask you about this, because I was thinking of this today as I was driving as a question to ask you. Limp Bizkit, what's your opinion on them?
You know what? I'll tell you. Look, Fred Durst, if he would have just kept his mouth shut most of the time in these interviews and not dated Britney Spears. I remember them opening for Metallica at the Sanitarium. I forget what the tour was, at Giant Stadium, and he's like, at a Metallica show with 60,000 people, he's up on there going, I don't know if you guys know what's going on with me and Britney, but I just want to let everyone know that I really love her, and I don't know what the tabloids are saying. And there's 60,000 people booing. It's like, Fred, come on. You don't bring that up at a Metallica show. You know what I mean? Come on, read your audience. But I'll tell you, man, I was at Download in 2009, at Download Festival in England, and Limp Bizkit was on it, and they're fucking unbelievable live.
I've never seen them live, but their first few albums I friggin' love. They're so intense.
They open with break stuff. How can you go wrong? That's a fucking, talk about an angry song about teenage angst. No, they got a little silly at the end, but they got some good stuff. I still listen to their stuff.
Yeah.
I still listen to their records. But they took the brunt of the new metal. So every band always has to do it. Poison and Warrant, they took the brunt of the hair metal.
This is true.
So and then Limp Bizkit was, Korn didn't get it. Limp Bizkit got it. So no, look, I mean, but they are great live. But Fred, I think that's what it was. He went to he was doing interviews all the time. He was all over the place, and people just got sick of him. And then you got a guy, he's wearing his hat backwards, and he's like 38. It's like, come on, dude.
You know what? I gotta let my buddy on here, our guy Nick. He's like our TV specialist. He has a question for you.
All right. How come the show's not HD? I have no idea. They're retarded.
Actually, go ahead, Nick. Ask your question. This is Jim Florentine.
Hey, Jim. It's nice to talk to you. I wanted to just ask. I heard that you filmed an episode of Californication.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, how was that? How was being on the set? It's a pretty wild show. I mean, most of us, I think, are pretty big fans, and I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about your experience on the set and, a little bit about your episode or something like that.
Yeah, well, and thanks to the Amy Schumer show. I did Amy Schumer's show. I'm friends with her, and she had me on her show on Comedy Central. And once you do a show like that, it's like people are like, oh, he was on that show, then, he'd come in and audition for this show. But the Californication thing, actually, the creator of the show is a huge metalhead, and he watches that metal show every week. And my manager knew, like, his assistant, and he's like, hey, Jim's in California, if you want, he'll come in and meet with the creator, and the creator's like, yeah, come on in. And I met with this guy Tom, and we sat and talked for like an hour, and he's like, all right, man, I went into his office. It was like being in my office. He had Slayer posters, Sabbath all over the place, and he's like, I'm going to try to write a role for you, and we'll see what happens. I'm like, all right. And then like 2 weeks later, he's like, you want to play a pimp this year? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So I went and did an episode. It's I'm in pretty much the whole episode. I play a pimp that brings this chick over to the house.
No, so you did Californication and you did Amy Schumer. Are you going to do Jesselnick?
I'm hoping. I just did an episode of Girls too.
Yeah, I heard about that too. I really can't wait for Californication, especially now that I know you're playing a pimp. And then I'm going to have to read.
The company was great, man, working with him. He's a really nice guy. I was on the set for like 4 days, so it was a big scene. So everybody was really cool there, man. And me and my wife just started watching the show last season. We really got into it. So it was really cool to be on that. And, I would love to do Jesselnick's show. I mean, they tape it out in L.A., so he uses a lot of L.A. guys. I'm hoping to get on there. We'll see.
Okay, great. Well, hey, thanks for answering my questions. I appreciate it.
No problem. If Amy and Anthony were still going out, I'd probably get on the show. I'm going to tell Amy, just get back with him so I can get in.
All right, we're down to the wire, so I guess we're going to have to wrap this up. I can sit and talk music and comedy all night along with you. So,
it was a good conversation, absolutely.
Jim, thanks so much. Everybody tune in every Thursday on the Boneyard, Ozzy's Boneyard on Sirius XM, 5 o'clock Eastern Time for the Jim Florentine Metal Midget Show. Go to his website for all his other happenings with his podcast, tons of comedy dates. Anything else? That metal show, is there going to be a new season coming soon, or?
Probably sometime late fall, something like that. That's what I'm hearing. We don't really know. They don't let us know until like a month before. But, yeah, we're definitely going to do another season. Before the end of the year, we will.
Awesome. Can I get you to cut a quick ID for me as we're live? Just to say,
yeah, sure.
Jim Florentine, and you're listening to that, I'm going to say That Metal Show, Totally Driven Radio.
Hey, this is Jim Florentine from That Metal Show, and you're listening to Total... Wait, let me do it again. We're live, so... Yeah. Hey, this is Jim Florentine from That Metal Show, and we're listening to Totally
Driven Radio.
That one up again. Hey, this is Jim Florentine from That Metal Show, and you are listening to Totally Driven Radio. Nice.
There you go. See, it's a lot easier, I guess, than saying Gary Delabate.
Yeah, exactly.
I usually hear everybody choking.
Listen to this week, the Best of the FMEs.
Yeah.
It's really good, man. Holy shit, it's fucking so funny.
It's that's the one thing I expect Howard to do after he's done with this contract. I think he's going to go into the world of podcasts and just do it whenever he wants to.
Yeah, possibly, if there's enough money for him.
Yeah. That's true, too. Or he just runs with Jesse Ventura and becomes vice president of the country.
All right, I'll take Jesse.
Me too.
Yeah. He's not going to go into Syria for no reason.
This is true. Jim, thanks so much. And tell the other guys, come on. I met Don last week at Monster Mania. So I guess that's how we finally got this situated. I've been talking to Meredith for months.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Don's got the same pub. I think Meredith works with Don, too. So.
Yeah, that's what he was saying.
Yeah, so Don will definitely come on, because he's got his band Gunfire and Sodomy. He definitely wants to promote, so.
Oh, cool.
And I'll talk to Eddie when Eddie's book's coming out. I think it's coming out next month. I'm sure he'll do your show, too. I'll mention it to him.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. And
no problem, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you go, guys.
The comedy
wrap it
god.
up. We could have went all night long with him. What a good dude.
You got to get him back.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're down to 2 seconds left, and technically we are now